Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you for waking up with the Draft Nerds this morning. Pleasure to be here with you. I'm your host, Matt, along with my boy Jordan. And we got a special guest here today. Listen, if you are a draft guy, if you're into mock drafts, big boards, the whole nine, then you're no stranger to my guest here, Ryan Wilson of CBS Sports. Ryan, welcome to the show. So glad to have you. How are you doing?
Good morning, Matt. Good morning, Jordan. Thanks for having me here. Listen, man, I'm gonna tell you this: the production quality of that intro, even though the season's over, it's got me hyped and ready to go. So shout out to whoever's responsible for that. And
Yes,
just say, I don't know if I mentioned this to you when I say the Senior Bowl, but I'm a
sir.
Steelers fan, so we can have a little conversation about
Oh,
I,
wow.
the direction.
You know
Jordan,
what? I think you did.
what's your team, Jordan?
I'm also a Ravens fan.
Oh, okay, all right, good. So
Yeah.
we hit a rough patch this off season, so we can talk
Enemy
about that.
territory. Oh man, you're in enemy territory today, but it's all good, man. We're thankful that you found the time this morning to come on here with us, talk some football, man, because it is that time of year. It is draft season, and right now everyone's putting out their mock drafts and their big boards, and so we brought Ryan on here to talk about his big board, talk about what the mocks are saying these days, and some of his favorite prospects. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow us. We are streaming live right now on YouTube, Twitch, and X. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. Not used to seeing us this early, but here we go. All right. So Ryan, let's talk about your big board, man. So let's just dive right into it. You put out your top 125. Now, how often, like, how often do you do this? Do you do this every year? Have you gone more than 125 or?
So in the summer, like September, I'll do a top 50 based on just summer, watching the guys over the summer and getting a feel of who's going to be the dudes. And obviously, we'll know about a lot of the quarterbacks. And then the refresh usually comes in March. And I may do a top 150 before the draft. A refresh comes in February, I should say, as we are right now. And then I think I do a final top 150 in March, maybe even early April. And here's the thing, and I've been doing this since 2018, covering the draft for CBS. And the longer you're in it, and the more you talk to folks from different teams, the quicker you understand that after about 100, 125, everything's different. Like it depends on what your team is trying to accomplish. It depends on how you're constructing your roster. And so once you get to day three, even the fourth round, everything's going to look different on all 32 teams. So that's why it's fun to see what other people have in the media, but also if you're interested in getting into this sort of stuff, and here's what I tell people all the time. If you've done this enough, you feel comfortable about something, trust what you see, because just because the guy that you have 125, someone else has 32, somebody's going to be wrong. It might be the other guy. So trust yourself, because on the internet, as you guys know, if everyone isn't saying the same thing, people in the comments get angry. But here's the little peek behind the curtain. The people in the comments aren't watching the tape. So don't let that be your guide. Let your guide be your eyeballs, because presumably you're doing this because you love doing it and you want to differentiate yourself. If you don't want to differentiate yourself, I suppose you can say whatever you want and save yourself the trouble of watching the players. But my point is this: there'll be some guys in this list that maybe seem high or low compared to other lists, and I'm cool with that, and I'm happy to talk about it. It took me a while to figure that out. I was like, oh, so and so on the internet's mad about this. Maybe I'm wrong. And then I was like, wait a second.
Man, listen, Jordan understands this. Every day I get angry comments about my list, my big board, I did my positional rankings, and I literally had so just to kind of give you some insight to what I did. So I put out my wide receiver rankings. Now I did my defensive tackle rankings. Everybody loved it. I got like a few what about this guy? They love the defensive tackle rankings, the linebacker rankings, but those wide receivers causes a lot of issues, right? So I put out my wide receiver rankings, and I had Carnell Tate fourth behind Denzel, Mekhi Lemon, and Jordan Tyson. And I had to fight off the entire Ohio State fan base because why did I have Carnell Tate ranked fourth.
And that's a great point, Matt, because a lot of this is coming from people who are laser focused on their team. And I will give people in the comments credit. We just did on the podcast. We just went through all 32 NFL teams about how to the bit was called Fix Your Franchise. You don't need to fix the Seattle Seahawks, but we just went through them. But if you mispronounce the name of the backup center, fan bases will get after you. And I appreciate that because it keeps you on your toes. That said, they're not going to be able to speak unless they have they don't have a job and nothing else to do about 10 other teams. So I understand that as well. I'm with you on Denzel Boston. I don't like him as much. I don't like him better than Carnell Tate, but I'm higher on him than most people. And we'll find out in 3 years. So we don't have to get angry about it now. We'll find out together in 3 years who was right. And Jackson Smith-Njigba was the 20th overall pick. He's one of the best players in football. So 19 people got it wrong initially, just because we didn't see at Ohio State injuries at Ohio State that we're currently seeing now. So I'm not going to be mad at you, even as a Ravens.
Hey man, listen, I love Denzel Boston. I think he's super pro ready. When you look at the physical build, his ability to high point the ball, catch the ball with his hands shows really strong hands. He's very versatile too for a guy 6'4". You see him in motion, you see him in the slot, you see him outside. He even returns punts. Yeah, I was like, how often? I asked the guy yesterday. I said, "Well, how often do you see a 6'4" wide receiver returning punts?" He was like, all the time." I was like, "Name one."
on Madden, you see it all the time. You don't see it in real life. All the time.
It was one of those responses. Go ahead, Jordan.
I was watching him literally yesterday night when we were talking about him. And something that always sticks out with me about Denzel Boston too is just his ability to play off script. And just when you have a mobile quarterback, how useful that is. And I think that's part of the reason we look at it differently than a lot of other teams too, because seeing that ability to play off script, he was so well at doing that in UW. And
it's a good point. That's a great point, but it's sort of something I was thinking about as you're talking, Jordan, is that part of Denzel's issue is that he's coming 2 years after Keon Coleman, fairly or not, and people are going to lump him in the Keon Coleman bucket. Keon struggled to separate Florida State. Before that at Michigan State, he was running a little different offense. We saw a little bit more glimpses of his ability to separate. He has not been able to do that, obviously, in Buffalo. He's had some maturity issues, which has affected his playing time. Denzel, you don't feel like you're watching Keon Coleman, other than they're both thick and tall. And Denzel's a good, probably inch or two taller than Keon. So that's nothing Denzel can do about it. All he can do is ball out. By the way, again, AJ Brown, DK Metcalf were second-round picks. DK went at the bottom of the second round. So we overthink it sometimes. I say all the time, if the draft were 2 days after the Super Bowl, we wouldn't have time to make up all these stories to make us angry about these players.
No. and to be honest, the best receivers in the NFL are 6'2" and under anyway. So I want to highlight some people on this top on this big board, right? I'm gonna just point out a couple of guys, and then you can just tell me what you like about those guys. So let's start right at the top of the board with Fernando Mendoza. I've seen some big boards where obviously he's the presumable number one overall pick, but they don't have him number one on their big board. Why is he number one for you, and what do you like about him?
Well, he's going to be a franchise quarterback, and obviously that position is more valuable than other positions. But again, I just mentioned that we spend the next 60 days talking ourselves into these players not being as good as they were in the fall. I remember during Quinnen Williams' draft, which was 2019, coming out of Alabama, I was talking to the scout, and that was my first year really doing the draft. And I said, this was early April. I said, is there anything wrong with Quinnen that we need to worry about on the field in terms? He goes, look, man, there doesn't have to be something wrong with the kid, okay? Sometimes these kids are good. Quinnen Williams, it turns out, is really good. I think Fernando Mendoza is a really good player, and you hear now, well, if he were in last year's draft class, he would have been QB3. No, he wouldn't. He would have been in the mix for QB1. There would have been teams that liked him more than Cam Ward. There would have been teams that would have taken Cam Ward. No one going back 12 months has taken Jackson Dart top 5 because nothing would have changed from his Ole Miss tape. Obviously, we're doing a redraft today. That would be different. But the thing I like about Fernando is that he's tough. There is no kid tougher. That kid, Cam Ward was just as tough. He'll get smoked and get right back up, have a smile on his face, and just start slinging it. He can make anticipation throws. He can make big time throws, and he did it consistently in the playoffs. He did it in that Penn State game where he had to drive Penn State down the field. Nomar Cooper made that fantastic touch in the back of the end zone. And the thing about he's quirky. You can call him goofy. You can call him whatever you want. I've talked to a couple GMs about that, and they do not care because guess what? If you are winning, players will embrace you. And his teammates at Indiana embrace him as well. I talked to Kalen Black at the Senior Bowl, and he said, I loved him from day one. And then I saw him practice, and I said, okay, I definitely love this guy. Because you look at his Cal tape, they had Jack Endries to tight end. They had Jaden Knott, the running back. The offensive line was not good, and he got smoked every single drop back, and all he did was get up and keep slinging it. That translates because he's going to go to a bad team. This isn't a situation where you're Caleb Williams or you're Jaden Daniels and you're used to winning, and you go to a program in the NFL where it's going to be automatically a 10-win team. Jaden was the exception, but Drake May and Caleb can speak to struggling early on with an offense that wasn't quite where it needed to be, and changes happen. So I'm not overthinking it. That's one of the things I like to say. Is he going to struggle in Las Vegas? Probably. Does he have a chance to be really good? Absolutely. So you need a quarterback. You can have 10 RL Reeses on your team and a terrible quarterback, and guess what? You're going to win 3 football games. So that's why I had him ahead of Arvell.
Absolutely. I kind of agree with you. Jordan, you had something?
Yeah, I was going to say, especially for a franchise that's waited since Jamarcus Russell to take one, right?
Ooh. You had to bring up Jamarcus, Jordan.
The thing I love about your big board is the fact that you have both Utah tackles in the top 12. I don't think the other one, Lomu, gets as much credit as he deserves. And
yeah. No, go ahead.
Oh, I just gonna say if you want to talk about it for a second.
Absolutely. So what happens is I'll watch these guys because we'll spend a lot of time in the fall on the podcast highlighting players who are standing out that we perhaps talked about over the summer or perhaps didn't talk about, and they're starting to flash. We talked about both Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fano over the summer. Spencer played left tackle, moved to right when Lomu showed up on the scene. And Lomu isn't he's got to get a little stronger, but I think he's come pretty far technically. I think Spencer Fano reminds me a lot of Troy Platanu in terms of the way he plays, and he does have the right left versatility. I think his arm's going to be a little short. We'll find out next week for sure. But I don't like to have my decisions about where to play position to put a player position wise based on just looking at the measurables, because I've seen Fano play, and I've seen him play. He and Lomu held up pretty well against Texas Tech and those 18 dudes they have on defense, it feels like. So you have to have left tackles. You have to have right tackles. They're incredibly important. Obviously, the list starts with quarterback, but after that, it's offensive line, it's defensive line, it's edge rushers, cornerbacks. And I think these guys have a chance. I think Fano's more of a day one starter than Lomu, and Lomu may end up going a little later. Mm-hmm. And I think I had Lomu ahead of Caden Proctor. I thought he played a little bit more consistently than Caden Proctor. Yeah, I had him 6 spots ahead of Caden Proctor. And Caden obviously built in a lab, but for someone that's 360 asterisks, which is, what he was in 8th grade probably, I want to see a little better anchor, and I think he can do it. I'm not worried about all that stuff, but based on just what I saw, I had Lomu a little ahead of him. And again, these offensive linemen get pushed up because they're incredibly important to what you're trying to do and who you're trying to protect.
No, absolutely. I love the 2 Utah tackles. They flashed a lot. I think I see Spencer more as a guard in the NFL. I think the conversations I've had with people when it comes to Francis Malinois and Spencer Fano, they probably predict better as guards in the NFL, and because there's no true franchise left tackle, so to speak, in this draft, many are seeing it as a weak tackle class. Do you see it that way as well, or what are your thoughts on the tackle class overall?
I'm pretty excited about it. I think again the problem is, and it's not so much a problem, it's just that we can't see into the future. Lane Johnson was in that 2013 class that was incredibly weak, that had Eric Fisher go at the top, and then it had the Luke Jokel go the first 2 picks, and everyone for the longest time was talking about how terrible that class was. Lane Johnson is a Hall of Famer, and I think sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. So on paper, it may not look super sexy, but I'm okay trying CC Malinois at right tackle to see what that looks like, because it looked pretty good at Miami. We'll see with Fano. I'm okay putting him out there and see what happens. Because remember, we had that conversation about who's the right tackle that the Saints drafted out of Oregon State? The big kid that
you're talking about
but he was
Mulaga, right? What was his name?
I'll look it up. I'll look it up in a second. He's in the same. It was 2 draft classes ago.
Yeah, he was co-dress code. Yeah.
But the issue was that the conversation leading up to the draft was that let's kick him inside to guard because he's more of a guard body. All he's been doing is dominating in the league outside. They drafted Kelvin Banks last year to be the left tackle, so they got that offensive line in pretty good shape. And I think that's sort of the lesson you have to learn. Like, you have to let these guys play in positions they're used to playing in, and then you can decide whether they're not a good fit or not. But I think guys like Monroe Freeling, the left tackle out of Georgia, Fuaga, thank you. Yeah, that's right. Fuaga. I apologize for not remembering his name.
Yeah.
At my age, I'm lucky I remember my name. Let's be real. Monroe Freeling, the left tackle out of Georgia, is going to be getting a lot of buzz over these next few weeks. Maxie Anachor, who's at the Senior Bowl, the right tackle who's only been playing football for 4 years. He's going to be getting a lot of buzz. Keegan Trost out of Missouri, I like. Jude Bowery out of BC. So they're going to be some guys that perhaps go on day 2 or day 3. They're going to end up being starters in the league. So maybe not super sexy at the top. Caden Proctor can change that. But I think sometimes, as I like to say, we overthink it. And there are some good football players in this draft class.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I want to ask you about a guy that's one of my favorites, but there seem to be split opinions on him, and that's defensive tackle Peter Woods from Clemson. Some people have issue with the production from last year. You see some, again, opinions are all over the place. I love him. I don't think he's scratched the surface of what he could actually be at the next level. I think he was asked to do a lot. He had to fight double and triple teams almost every week. I think he'll have more opportunities to be able to get sacks and things like that in the NFL. But I'm interested in what your thoughts are. I think you had him in your top 10. And so, tell us about Peter Woods and what you like about him.
Yeah, he was my number 1 player over the summer. And you're right, Matt. That Clemson team, you can pick out a name just about, and outside of Blake Miller, probably the right tackle. And they weren't as good as they were in 2024. Same conversation with TJ Parker, right? I talked to TJ at the Senior Bowl, and I asked him about that. And I actually loved his answer. He knew he was getting it, but he answered it in a very eloquent way. He said, I just did my job in 2025, and I let other dudes make plays around me. So that's a good way to frame it. But he will admit that he wasn't nearly as productive until that South Carolina game where he had 4 sacks on Lenoris at the end of the season there. But to your point about Peter Woods, he's still explosive. He's still one of the most versatile interior defensive linemen in this draft class, in that he is really good against the run, but he can also win as a pass rusher, perhaps better than other guys in terms of consistency. He doesn't have a ton of pass rush moves, but you can certainly work on that. Do we know how old he is? He's 20. He hasn't turned 21 yet. So he's turned 21 next month. So the dude is, to your point, Matt, you just said it, he's scratching the surface. So you can ding guys for having down seasons, but I can give you 20 games where Tom Brady played like crap in the NFL, and he is still Tom Brady. So I don't think we live in a world where patience isn't a thing, and we don't give people in any walk of life that perhaps the grace they need. They may not deserve it, but they need to sort of figure out who they are. And I think that holds a lot when you're talking about player evaluation. So I've seen him, and one of the the scouting sort of bromides is that if he's done it once, he can do it again. And Peter Woods has done it a lot. So he might be a little high for some people at 6 on my board, but that's the beauty of where you can make any board you want, and you can put them 1 or you can put them 350. It's up to you. But like I said, we'll find out. We'll find out in 3 years. So I like him in this defensive line class. The more you watch, the more I like it. We saw Caleb Banks show up down there at Senior Bowl and ball out after being hurt for much of the season. Caden McDonald grew on me out of Ohio State as he got through the process. Lee Hunter is a little spark plug who had a good week as well, and obviously coming off that really good season for Texas Tech. So I think they're guys to help your defensive line. They're just not going to be – you're not going to find Aaron Donald, but that's why there's only one Aaron Donald.
Right, certainly.
I think the thing is, too, like when you're looking at D-line classes, like there's a lot – it's like really nose tackle heavy as opposed to like 3-tech heavy. And so when that's the case, like a lot of people are going to think negatively about the D-line class because they don't like fully understand like the difference between them a lot of the time.
No, that's a good way of putting it. That's right. You're getting a Casey Hampton. You're not getting to invoke Aaron Donald. You're not getting an Aaron Donald, for example. So if you're getting a guy that's just eating up interior offensive linemen to let the linebackers do their jobs, that may not be as appealing to you as someone who's getting 10 to 12 sacks a year. And I get that on some level. And I think, sometimes we try to overcomplicate football. But at the end of the day, if you're being impactful and if you're being disruptive in the backfield, that's a great place to start if you're just a fan trying to figure out if this guy's going to make sense on my favorite team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So a couple more players I want to talk to you about before we go to the next topic is Mekhi Lemon, right? I noticed that you have him at 16. You have Carnell Tate at 13 and Denzel Boston, who we talked about at the beginning of the show, at 21. What do you like about those three? Any concerns? And then also, do you have any type of trepidation about Jordan Tyson? Because I do a little bit with the injuries. Is that a concern for you? Is that maybe why you have him in a different spot?
100%. Had the soft tissue injuries last year, which is fine, and fine in the sense that you're going to come back from those quicker. It's not fine that you're not playing. But then the year before, he tore his MCL and he missed significant time. So you're concerned about that. The athleticism is obvious. The playmaking ability is obvious. But, the best ability is availability, as the old saying goes there. And so we know what he can do, but you can't also just evaluate guys in a vacuum like they're never going to be injured, because that's a concern. And sometimes injuries are unlucky, and sometimes there's a history of them. And I used to do the podcast with Rick Spielman, who was the Vikings GM forever, and he's now back with the Jets. And he would say, if a guy's injured in college, he's probably going to be injured in the pros, because there would be guys that I would fall in love with because the guy's hurt all the time. Amarius Mims is a perfect example. I loved Amarius Mims. He hurt his ankle his final year at Georgia against South Carolina, and it was just a freak, got rolled up on, had a high ankle sprain. And Rick's like, yeah, that's unlucky, but a guy that's hurt sometimes stays hurt, and sometimes it's a pain threshold thing. Sometimes that's just how the hand God gave you to play. Mm-hmm. In terms of Mekhi Lemon, I love so I'll watch these guys usually in October, November. Then I'll go back and watch them around All-Star game time just to refresh my memory on them. And it is hard to love someone more than you thought you did originally, but that's Mekhi Lemon, because he's going to be a slot guy, but he can play outside. Even going back and watching the Notre Dame game where they had weather and where Leonard Moore had an absolute field day, Leonard Moore didn't get him as many times as I thought as when I watched the game live on Saturday night back in the fall. And the other thing is this: the Amon-Ra St. Brown comps make sense. I think he can be a version of Jackson Smith and Jigba that we saw this year. He's not going to be an MVP in year one in terms of playing like JSN, but I think he can get there. JSN wasn't JSN in year one either. So I think he has that sort of versatility. And I know we fall in love with big receivers, but I think there's a cautionary tale with Marvin Harrison Jr. that fit matters, and that's the most important thing. So you can put Mekhi on the Browns, he'll probably stink. If you put him on the Rams, he's probably going to be Puka 2.0 in terms of the production he puts up. They'll play a different role, of course. So I love him. I'm not going to overthink it. I don't care that he's 5'10 or 5'11. That doesn't affect me or concern me at all. I think JSN was 6 feet. I remember being at Pro Day at Ohio State when he ran, because he'd been banged up, and he ran 4.51, and people let out a sigh of relief. When we all knew, we saw him play. He played fast on tape. So, again, we're overthinking it. Carnell Tate feels like the easiest among these guys in terms of translatability. I thought he made huge strides from 24 to 25 in terms of his consistency. You could argue he was wide receiver one in that room with Jeremiah Smith, the way he played last year. You had two, basically. And then we talked a little about Denzel Boston. The issue for him, if he runs a 4.45 at the combine, no one will care. If he runs a 4.65, then it's going to be a talking point.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Jordan.
That was it for me. I just agreeing, because that's the interesting thing with him is and me and Matt have talked about it a lot. We think he's gonna do nice at the combine, but it doesn't necessarily mean nice in the 40.
Yeah,
he's gonna look really good in drills, in my opinion. But how will he look in the 40 is gonna dictate a lot.
Yeah, I imagine the gauntlet drill they do at the combine when they catch the ball, they turn around and catch it, and they run down. I imagine he's going to do really good at that. He's going to do really good at the back shoulder catch drill on the sideline where they have to turn around, back shoulder catch, and keep their feet in bounds, because his agility and ability to contort his body in the air and catch the ball at his highest point is something that he does really, really well. And when you're 6'4", you're a long strider. So he's a guy that he builds up speed as he's running. He's not an acceleration guy. It's not like Tyreek Hill where, he's just going from 0 to 100 instantly. He builds up speed as he's running, but he can separate. And he's a guy that I think people should be excited about. To go back to Carnell Tate though, so again, I have him number 4. I like Carnell Tate. I see a lot of things to like. Obviously, I think if he goes to a team that already has a number 1, kind of like what you said about the Browns, if he goes to a team like, let's say, the Giants, where they already have Malik Neighbors and he can be a natural number 2 like he was in college, I think he's better in that role than being a true number 1. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like the Giants make a ton of sense because, one of the knocks that you hear about Denzel Boston outside of the Keon Coleman concerns is that if you're the Steelers, for example, you take him at 21, you already have DK Metcalf. Ask Joe Burrow if he hates having Jamar Chase and T. Higgins out there, because you can never have enough of those guys. And it does. And by the way, DK and Denzel do completely different things. DK runs go routes and slants, and that's pretty much it. Denzel's route tree is a little more developed than that. So if Carnell ends up going to the Giants, Jackson Dart should be ecstatic. John Harbaugh should be ecstatic. Malik Neighbors should be ecstatic because he needed some help desperately. And that's no disrespect to Wan'Dale Robinson, but Wan'Dale isn't 6'2" and change and a contested catch machine. So I think you're right. I think there's not a number 1 wide receiver in this class in the way we thought about Malik or Jamar coming out or even Marvin Harrison Jr., who hasn't quite yet hit his stride. But it's okay to be a 1A or a 2 coming out. And if you want a 1A in Carnell, you take him with that Giants pick in the top 5. I don't think there'll be a lot of complaining about that from Giants fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree 100%. All right, so that takes us right into our next topic. So I know you did a mock draft recently. I'm sure. When's your next one coming out?
Probably after the combine at some point. I'm not sure. I used to, when I first started doing this back in 2018, 2019, they would have me doing every week, and I would actually mark time by what number mock draft I was on. Because I would end up doing, like, from the start of September to the college football season, I think it's like 36 weeks. So I would do 36 mock drafts of the actual draft. Now I'm on mock draft number 6, I think. So they like me a little more, not making me do one every single week. So probably the next 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, I bet there'll be one coming out.
All right. Make sure you guys, follow Ryan Wilson on X, on YouTube. Make sure you tune in to CBS Sports when he's there. You don't want to miss his draft content. As you can see, very insightful, informative, and even if you don't agree, at least it's something to discuss, right?
They don't agree based on comments, but that's okay. You know what I say, Matt?
What'd you say?
I say politics, religion, and mock drafts are what make people the angriest, and not necessarily in that order. And that is not far off.
Man, I love that. All right, so do you have any favorite player and team matches from the draft perspective, right? Like you saying, hey, this guy, I would love to see this guy here or this guy there. Do you have any favorite player and team matches? Let's play matchmaker here on the
let's do that. Podcast. So let's start with your Ravens. They pick 14th. Whoever the best punter is, that's who I want them to take with their first round pick. That's my joke. All right, let's see here. So I'm looking at my top 100. Here we go. I'm just trying to think about as we go down the list here. So I'll say this. One of the things that I think Tennessee picks 4, and they need offensive line help in the worst way. So you can take CeCe Mauanoa there. They have J.C. Latham. They would have to figure out which side to keep him on. He's played both left and right in the NFL. I would lean toward like Carnell Tate with Brian Dable and Cam Ward, even at 4. I love that. They drafted Ayu Minor, Tamir DK, Gunnar Helm last year. All guys were contributors. None of those guys is a true number 1. And we just talked about whether Carnell's number 1 or not. He can still be a 1.5 with the help of those other now second-year players. I love that fit there. I love the idea of the Browns getting CeCe Mauanoa at right tackle. They have DeJuan Jones. If they're going to roll with Shedeur, and Todd Monken sounds like he's going to, I love that there. And then they pick again at 24. And then someone, if Denzel Boston's there, you pair him with Jerry Jeudy, who's not a number 1. So you have 2 1.5s or 2 2s. I think that's a step in the right direction. Another thing that I don't hate, and Browns fans absolutely loathe it, is Kenyon Sadiq there at 24. And Njoku's going to leave. They like to play with two tight ends. At least they did in Stefanski's offense. But we saw a lot of two tight ends. You guys can speak more to that than I can in terms of what Todd Monken likes to do. And Kenyon Sadiq has a chance to be better than Njoku. He's going to be a better blocker. He can play inline in the slot, so he gives you that physicality. And let's do like the Rams. I love the idea. They picked 13, Mansur Delane, the LSU cornerback. They need cornerback help. He is physical, and there'll be questions about his athleticism. All I do is watch him and think this guy is athletic enough to shut down SEC cornerbacks, wide receivers, excuse me. So I'm not worried about that. And then the next one with the Rams pick again, with their own pick at 29, and then it's going to be the Ty Simpson conversation. I think Louis Riddick said this the other day that the Rams actually like Ty Simpson a lot. We'll see, and I think Ty Simpson is a victim of his own undoing in that he was injured and he struggled down the stretch. First half of the season, if everyone's being honest with themselves, there were conversations: is he going to be in the QB1 conversation? So. And we talk about fit mattering all the time. There's no better fit than sitting either in San Francisco or in the Rams quarterback room for a year or two, because you're going to have the pieces around you. You don't have the pressure of starting right away, and you're learning from Shanahan/McVay. So Rams fans may hate it, but there's nothing wrong for planning for the future. And Ty Simpson is a really good quarterback. The issue is that he was hurt and he played hurt, and maybe he shouldn't have. But I think he sort of hurt himself with that. But at the end of the day, if you watch his throws, especially the throws inside 30 yards, there was no one better in college football last year.
It's exactly what he said about his toughness, too. Like, it's almost like his Achilles heel and a really awesome trait to see. Because, like, man, what would it have been like if he just came back a little bit later? And, like, that's just what I can't stop getting out of my head with him.
Yeah, and that's fair. And those are questions. Because I actually wrote about this in November, where his throws within 30 yards were among the best, and going back to Joe Burrow's draft class, and his throws beyond 30 yards was literally dead last. Like it wasn't even close how inaccurate he was pushing the ball down the field. But then you find out he's dealing with a back and an oblique injury, and now the Jets at 2, because Dante Moore decided to come back to Oregon, have to figure out, okay, is this guy worth 2? Can we get him at 16? And then, of course, there's going to be some other teams that need quarterbacks, whether it's the Steelers or the Rams, sort of stockpiling QBs for the future.
So, Ryan, on the screen you see here, this is my last mock draft. So, tell me what you hate about it. Just like the fans in the
I don't hate it.
Tell me what you hate about it. Tell me what you like about it, or not necessarily hate about it, but what do you like about what I did here, and what is something you probably would have done differently?
Yeah, all these guys are going to be in the mix for first-round picks, no doubt about it. I do wonder. I want to see what happens, how teams feel about Cassius Howell. Yes. He's going to have 30.5-inch arms, and that's just the reality of it. Are you okay with that? And you have him going to the 49ers? Is that what that is?
Yes. Yeah.
San Francisco? Yeah. So they typically like bigger edge rushers, but that point aside, are you okay with someone with 30.5-inch arms when someone like, where is he? Max Iheanacho has 34.5-inch arms. So when you do the math on that, it gets a little tougher to win consistently. So that's my only question on Cassius. I have him as a day 2 guy, mostly because of that. Everything else, I don't have any concerns with. I wouldn't take Jordan Tyson that high, but that's just me, and I could be alone on that. David Bailey, I think, helped himself immensely this season. I didn't love his tape coming out of Stanford last year, but that's the reason he went back to school and went to Texas Tech, and he absolutely destroyed it. Ruben Bain's going to have 31.5-inch arms, or 31 and change-inch arms, whatever they're going to be. And then he weighs 275. So does he play outside? Does he have to kick inside? How does that work? And those are something else teams have to figure out. But I'll say this, as I said earlier, you can't just rely on measurables. If you watch Ruben Bain Jr. play, I need you to show me someone that was consistently able to stop him, because he was pretty much unstoppable. It helped that he had, Blay playing defensive line, had Mesidor on the other side, had Keontae Scott behind him, had a linebacker whose name's escaped me. He was supposed to be the Shrine Bowl. So it all works together. If Caleb Downs is there at 12, man, Jerry Jones is living right. He's a special player. Sonny Styles is a special player. Yeah, this checks out. I think Vega Ione to the Chargers is an absolute grand slam. Zion Johnson is probably not coming back. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option. And I was talking to some folks in Houston that are thinking about offensive line, of course. And I would imagine Ione is going to be on their radar. So the question becomes, do they move up from 28 to try to get him? Because they're going to have to move up ahead of the Chargers for obvious reasons. Caden Proctor going there 28 is interesting. I don't think Caden's going to kick inside.
You don't think so? Okay.
That
was my thinking. That was my thinking.
Yeah. I've talked about it too, Matt. And then I do the podcast with Rand Carthon now, who was a Titans GM, and then had been.
Yeah, that's my guy, man. Rand Carthon. Tell him we said hello. We like to have him on the show. But yeah,
absolutely.
I love you guys' content, man. Like,
I appreciate that. It's mostly
like
just
the yin to your yang. I like that. So
yeah, it's mostly me asking smart people stuff. So it makes my job easy. But he's of the opinion that Caden, and it's a good point. Caden's played left tackle his whole life, and sometimes when you're dealing with alphas like that, and you talk about moving them inside, it almost feels like a demotion to them. It's like telling the quarterback on Pee Wee football, "Hey, let's play center for a little bit." You're like, "Bro, I ain't playing center." So I don't know. We don't know Caden, so I don't know what his thought process is, but just something to keep in mind. And the other thing, when you talk to these offensive linemen that have never played positions, and I talked to a handful of these guys at the Senior Bowl who were being moved around for NFL future prospects reasons, they're like, yeah, it's a transition. I can't just go from right tackle to left tackle and everyone expects it to be seamless. Everything's reversed. So there's also that process. But yeah, this is a solid list. No Ty Simpson, which could also be a reality. And
no, he's right there at the Jets, 16.
Oh, you have him going 16. Oh, there he is at the bottom. And that could also,
bottom.
That's right. So it's going to be interesting. He could go as high as 2, and he could fall out of the first round altogether. So that's going to be something else worth watching. TJ Parker at 31 to the Patriots is also stealing. I think he's going to. I think the comps of Jared Verse are going to start becoming more and more a thing when people sort of get eyes on him because I was surprised to learn, not that he was 6'3", but that he was 260 and change. He's got 33.5-inch arms. And then the way he balled out. Because I said this to him. I said, man, I appreciate you practicing this week at the Senior Bowl because you don't have to. And I would imagine, he didn't say this, but someone must have said to him, go out there and just ball out. Because a lot of times, like Latu a few years ago, day one, crushed it. And then he, moonwalked through the next 2 days. And that was smart thing for him to do. But TJ, Lee Hunter, Caleb Banks, all those guys practice every single day, and they help themselves immensely by doing so.
No, I can't believe Caleb Banks was in the game. That was the craziest thing in the world to me.
Well, he said it in interviews, like during the practice, that he felt like he had something to prove. He really felt like people were doubting him and not thinking that he was that guy. And to be honest, I'm glad he did because, to be honest, and one of my boys who does a lot of Ravens content and he's kind of getting into the draft, Cole Jackson, shout out to Cole. He talked about how like Peter Woods is like the only true 3 technique in this draft who, pass rushing, run stopping combo. And the rest of it's a really deep class of interior defensive linemen, but most of them are just big guys who just kind of stop the run. Caleb Banks actually showed that he has a little more depth to his game.
Yeah, and that was a concern early in the draft process back in the fall as we got into November, December, that there weren't very much in the way of pass rushing defensive linemen. And that started to change a little bit. Like Lee Hunter is more defensive, more run stopper than pass rusher, but we saw a little of that, glimpses of that down the stretch and certainly the Senior Bowl. Caleb Banks, we just hadn't seen a lot of. He was going to be a top 32 pick if he had been healthy heading into the season. He wasn't, but we saw plenty of that. When you're 6'6", 330, 35-inch arms, it makes it a little easier. So there are some guys that are coming along that sort of get your attention and show that ability to do both. But like Caden McDonald over the first half of the season, I was like, this guy's insanely athletic, but he's not rushing the passer consistently. He got better at it, and he's also scratching the surface. I think he's still just 20. He might just have turned 21. So, those are the things you have to be patient with sometimes, because just because you don't see it when the kid's 19 years old doesn't mean you won't see it when he's 24 or 25.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this guy right here, Arvell Reese, right? I feel like there's a lot of – I was telling someone that he could probably fall a little bit. Reason being is that the people I've talked to kind of see him as a positionless player, right? He doesn't really have a home. Like he's not really a true edge rusher. As an off-ball linebacker, he was put in some weird situations at times at Ohio State. And there's just like, okay, what is he, right? Kind of like Ruben Bain. Is he a 3 technique? Is he an edge? Arvell Reese, is he an off-ball linebacker? Is he an edge rusher? In my positional rankings, I had him as an off-ball linebacker who can blitz and things like that. But I don't know if he's a true, like, I've seen comps to Micah Parsons that I don't really see. What is your thoughts on that about Arvell Reese? Do you see him as potentially the number 2 pick in the draft? And also, do you have any questions about what position he'll play in the next level?
Yeah, no, I've done tons of questions because he hasn't played a lot of ball. What he has done this year, because over the summer, let's be real, the conversations were about Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs on that defense, and then Arvell came out of, you don't come out of nowhere to Ohio State, but he came out of close to nowhere in terms of the just dominating in the way he played. And I know that fans will look at the stats down the stretch and not be impressed and have questions, and that's fine. But as you were talking, Matt, I was thinking about this. If the Seattle Seahawks had the number 2 pick and they had to take a defensive player, I can guarantee you Mike McDonald's probably taking Arvell Reese, because we saw what it looks like with Nicky Manwari, who had first-round talents and fell to the second round for whatever reason, and that's sort of the overthinking the part of the process sometimes. You find a way, two things. You find a way to use Arvell's best talents, and they can be at any level of the defense, it feels like. Mm-hmm. And number 2, defenses in the NFL are moving towards positionless players. So you have guys you can put in anywhere and have them on the field all 3 downs. So I think it's not a bug. I think it's a feature that Arvell Reese can do a bunch of stuff and do it at a high level. The Micah Parsons stuff, I think, has more to do with the fact that Micah was off ball at Penn State, didn't play the COVID year, and then he just shows up in Dallas dominating off the edge.
Looking like LT, like what?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I think Abdul Carter's in that conversation, but Abdul's certainly a little thicker. I think Arvell, you can play him in off ball, and that's where Rand has him in his position rankings, or you can play him at edge, it's where I had him, or somewhere in between. You can play him in the slot. You can play him at free safety if you want to. So I think that versatility is what makes him interesting. But I think what's important is to find out where he's most comfortable and where he can learn. And we talked about this with Nick Manwari during the fall after he got back from injury. You put him in a place where he can have success, let him do that, and then you expand what you ask him to do. You don't throw everything at him. And that was sort of one of the knocks against Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons looked like he was drinking to a fire hose at times, and Arvell's a better prospect. But we sort of put that athleticism and that versatility on Isaiah Simmons. It just never worked out. I think Arvell Reese, you find something he's good at, whether it's playing off ball or just situational pass rusher early on, and then you expand from there, because he can do things that a lot of people on this planet can't even, like, they wouldn't even dream of trying to do physically.
Absolutely. All right, so I'll be remiss if we don't get your thoughts on the Baltimore Ravens, right? There's a lot of Ravens flock fans watch this show, and they're like, okay, when are we going to talk about the Ravens, okay? All right, so what did you have? Who did you have the Ravens picking in your last mock draft? I had them picking Mekhi Lemon here. Who did you have in your mock? And what do you see is what position group or player that you like for the Ravens in the first round this year?
All right, let me see who had him taken in the most recent mock draft, which came out 2 weeks ago. Had the Ravens taken, they're picking 18th?
14th.
Oh, 14th. That's right, because they missed the playoffs. They lost the Week 17 game to the Steelers.
I think I saw one of your mocks. You had them taking Caden McDonald.
I haven't. I looked right now. I had him taking Caden McDonald, and Caden's there next to. And you guys know better than me, but I'm not sure what Nnamdi Madubuike's long-term health is. And if he's healthy, obviously he was a difference maker. And once he went out and everyone else and their brother got hurt, things started to go sideways there. But Caden McDonald next to Madubuike feels like you're cooking with gas. And so, Matt, let me ask you this. What do Ravens fans say when you take Mekhi Lemon over a defensive lineman there? Are they okay with that?
Yeah. I would say most are. Some are not. I'm not going to lie on the fan base and say, that everybody loves it. There's some people who like receiver but don't like Mekhi Lemon because of the size, right? Which you highlighted earlier, and I've been trying to highlight is that he's 5'11" or whatever, but he doesn't play 5'11", right? It's about play style and not your actual physical size, right? I remember Steve Smith Sr. being like 5'9", 5'10", and he played like he was 6'5", right? And I've seen big receivers play small. So it's about play style. Trying to educate people and let them know, like, look, watch the tape, watch the film, put the highlights on, whatever it is you need to do. But Mekhi Lemon plays above the rim. I think he had the highest contested catch rate in college football last year. So it's a lot to be said about that. But I think some Ravens fans don't like the thought of having him and Zay together.
Right.
They want a skyscraper, a bigger guy to kind of complement Zay, which is why Denzel Boston has been coming up in recent conversations. But yes, there are a lot of Ravens fans that are kind of on where you are, where they want, we need D tackle, we need offensive guard. But the thing I keep trying to tell them is like, we still have free agency. They're not going to go into the draft, just going for need. The Ravens have never been a draft for need team. They've always been a BPA, especially in the top 15. The last time they were picking at 14, they took Kyle Hamilton in a year in which they presumably didn't need a safety, but they took him anyway because he was the best player. Madubuike put out a vague tweet a few weeks ago saying he had good news. He didn't say what it was, but he said he had good news, and people ran wild with it. They did re-sign Travis Jones. Before the season ended, they extended him. So you do have Travis Jones. You got Aeneas Peoples from the draft last year. We'll see what happens with Broderick Washington. But yeah, so I think receiver is a sneaky need. Rashad Bateman still hasn't come into his own yet, and he's been in the league, I think, 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah, he's been around.
Tez Walker is a guy I think they want to bring along. We'll see what happens with that. DeAndre Hopkins is a free agent, and Tylen Wallace is also a free agent. So that just really leaves Zay Flowers, who's now extension eligible. We don't know what's going to happen with that. So receiver is something I just keeps sticking out to me, just because the top needs the top players that they would probably make sense for them, which is edge rusher, Bang Bailey probably will be gone, and Woods will probably be gone, and Malinois could be gone. And so I'm thinking, okay, wide receiver would be interesting. What are your thoughts on that as far as, okay, let's say they do go wide receiver. Which wide receiver do you think is the best fit?
So as you were talking about Mekhi Lemon, I agree with all of what he is certainly capable of doing. And I would also going to say exactly what you did say, that Ravens fans said we don't need Zay Flowers on the roster. And that's what Bills fans will say too. If you talk about a Mekhi Lemon or Casey Concepcion at the bottom of the first round, we already have Khalil Shakir. Mm-hmm. Hey, guess what? Khalil Shakir is your best receiver. You can have another one of those and use them in different ways. In terms of Mekhi Lemon to the Ravens, like, I don't hate it on the surface, but what I go back to is looking at how the Seahawks and the Patriots were built. And the Patriots spent a ton of money on fixing the defensive line. And then we know that the Seahawks drafted their defensive line, Byron Murphy. They went out, They went out and got Tank Lawrence. They got who they get from they trade?
They got Leonard Williams.
Leonard Williams. They traded for him. So that, you start up front and then sort of work your way back and sideways, and that's why I would lean towards Caden McDonald.
I like Caden
McDonald. I do understand, historically the Ravens have struggled to draft wide receivers, which has been the craziest thing. Like, they are so good at everything else, and just wide receivers have never hit. No. Going back to when Ozzie was still the GM, like, it just seemed like they could not find that guy. Derek Mason was awesome. Steve Smith was awesome, but those are all guys they signed. Anquan Bolden were all guys they signed when they were at the last 4 or 5 or 6 years of their NFL careers. It weren't guys they drafted, and it wasn't from lack of trying. I mean, they drafted a ton of guys. So I get that. Zay is Zay probably the best wide receiver they've drafted in the first round?
That's actually what I was about to say. It's like when you asked about the Ravens and like fans asking about picking one at 14, they're almost always willing to swing on wide receiver, even though there's a lot of them that will take D tackles and stuff like that. You could probably find a Ravens fan out there who has 4 wide receivers in their 7-round mock draft right now.
You got to get it right eventually. I get it, man. But it's been one of the sort of the weird blind spots of a Ravens team. And look, I'm sort of joking with you guys when I talk about the Steelers, because the Steelers obviously stink too. And I'm so far along in my fandom that I don't even get mad anymore when these two teams play and one loses. I went back and watched, must have been around the time of the Week 17 game, but I went back and watched the 2008 playoff game between the Ravens and the Steelers. And I was talking to Rand about this, and I said, if that game happened today, they would have arrested on the field at least 20 players on both teams.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh, Lord have mercy. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Just assaults everywhere. I mean, Ryan Clark would still be in jail. He wouldn't have had visitation yet.
There'd be so many fines that you could probably pay out a whole charity.
Oh, the way. I mean, Ryan Clark hit Willis McGahee.
Oh, my Lord.
In a way that would have gotten you arrested today in the NFL. It was crazy. Just some of the
Troy Polamalu is still running with that strip sack of Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco's still playing, which is the craziest part of that whole conversation.
That is. So okay. What do you like about Caden McDonald over, say, Caleb Banks? for the Ravens specifically?
Health. That's it. If we knew that Caleb Banks is going to be healthy, because I think Caleb's my number 2. He's my number 2 defensive lineman after Peter Woods. He's 15th, and Caden McDonald's 26th. The thing with Caden is that he is young, but he is not the pass rusher yet that Caleb Banks is. If Caleb is 100% healthy, then I'm 6'6" again, 330, 35-inch arms. How are you going to stop that?
Right.
Trying to be a 6'4", 300-pound center with 32-inch arms, wherever you're playing across the league. So I would take Caleb over Caden if health were not an issue. And look, to your point, Matt, like this defensive line class, like I said, you can get Daryl Jackson, Dominique Orange, Lee Hunter, Nick Baird, I like, Rayshon Benny, Christian Miller. These are all guys you can get in day 2 and even day 3 if you want to go. If Mekhi Lemon's higher on your board and you want to take him there, that certainly is a consideration. Now, you would imagine, again, I don't care that he and Zay Flowers are the same height. That's not a concern for me. You can win with guys like that.
No, absolutely. Height is kind of overblown. I think Ravens fans, I think most fans, right, have seen like the bigger receivers from back in the day, the Randy Moss, the Calvin Johnsons, the Dez Bryants, and some of these guys. And I think they have these dreams of like, oh man, it'd be nice to have one of those guys. But I think like that time is kind of gone, right? Like the best receivers in the league are like Jamar Chase at 6'1" or 6 feet, and even Justin Jefferson's only 6'1", Puka's 6'2". JSN is 5'11", 6 feet. Tyreek Hill is 5 whatever.
Sorry to interrupt you, but the other thing to keep in mind about the names you're mentioning, they're all in great systems where they have franchise quarterbacks that can get them the ball. You didn't mention Marvin Harrison, who was catching passes from Kyler before he got hurt, and then Jacoby Brissett. And so, that matters. And we sort of think everything we just put into a vacuum, and if you put player X on team Y, everything will work itself out. And, I think Mike Tyson said, hope ain't a plan. So it matters. All the stuff matters. Like Puka isn't Puka. And not to keep dumping on the Browns, but if he's playing for the Browns and Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders throwing on the ball, Puka Nacua is just some dude.
Yeah, that's true. So we got a couple of minutes left here with Ryan Wilson of CBS Sports. Thank you for tuning in with us this morning. So before one of the things before we let you go is I want to get your thoughts on the coaching hires around the NFL. I think we had about 11 new hires, which is, I don't think I've ever seen that many in one offseason, especially high-profile jobs. Right? Yeah. Normally, it's the same, suspects every year. It's, the Browns but teams like that. But you had the Giants, the Steelers, the Ravens. You had some blue blood programs that were in the market for head coaches. Give me 3 hires that you absolutely loved and 3 hires that you just kind of shook your head at.
I'll start with this one. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but the feeling I got. I do radio every week in Baltimore with Bob Haney and Vinny Serrato, and so we talk about this every week.
105.7 fans.
Yeah, and Ravens fans and Steelers fans have a lot in common in that they wanted so desperately to fire their successful head coaches. And it's funny because you saw the interview with Steve Bisciotti live when he was there when Tomlin stepped down, and you could see him thinking like, "Oh, that might not be a terrible hire." But then he said when he started beating his chest, I had to pass. And I think they got it. I like the Jesse Minter hire a lot. That'll be one. But the thing I was going to say is that it's pretty funny that both teams got what they wanted. And then Steelers fans were even angrier when they hired Mike McCarthy. So be careful what you ask for.
Be careful what you ask for. Yeah,
that's right. So that was funny. Mike Tomlin, I don't think he needed the headache. It's just me speculating. And, his daughter's still in college. He's a gymnast down in Georgia, I believe. So he's spending time doing that. And good for him. And the Steelers fans can walk with him to the bank when he puts that $16 million in there, and he'll even let you count it probably. So, the Jesse Minter hire I love. I think the other thing is that fans love to convince themselves of, without perhaps not knowing much more than just a name and what they read, is that the next hot young coordinator, whether it's offense or defense. I think Jesse Minter is more than that. We saw, the things he was doing with that defense, and in LA are going to translate pretty nicely because you have your Derwin James and Kyle Hamilton. And I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. So that's one. The Mike McCarthy one, I don't even hate for Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh fans just felt like it was not very inventive or thoughtful. There's no quarterback. And one of Mike Tomlin's biggest flaws wasn't winning. or it was winning all the time. They've never. The only time they had a top 10 pick is when they traded up for Devin Bush, the linebacker, from 20 to 10, and that was a terrible decision. It turns out in hindsight, but they never in position to get a quarterback, so and that's what they need. So maybe they didn't need to win 2 or 3 or 4 games. The Giants hire, I want to see how this works. John Harbaugh obviously was a special teams guy coming from Philly, and he was there for 18 years. So the culture was where it needed to be in Baltimore for most years. I want to see how it works in a program where the culture has sort of gone into the garbage since Eli Manning and the Super Bowl teams exited. So I'll put that in. I'm curious. Robert Saleh, Brian Dable, I'm curious about that one as well in Tennessee, because I think, Saleh will get the defense where it needs to be. Brian Dable has success, obviously, in Buffalo, not so much in New York, but Buffalo is the coordinator for Josh Allen. And then the Bills one I'm curious about, like Joe Brady, the way that Sean McDermott was sort of shown the door, and the Game of Thrones.
Kind of was like,
Yeah. I think Brandon Beane was put in a tough spot when he has to sit next to the owner at the press conference, and the owner just starts saying crazy stuff out loud, and you're guilty by association. I don't think that was Brandon Beane's intent. Man. And I'm sure he would have preferred not to have his promotion also announced on the same day they were firing the guy that won 40 more games than he lost. Who are the other hires? I love the Kevin Stefanski hire in Atlanta. I think Kevin Stefanski is a fantastic coach. I think he's working through some trying circumstances in Cleveland, obviously. Todd Monken, I don't hate. It's sort of like the McCarthy hire, old timer, not going to put up a lot of BS, has shown historically that he can get the most out of quarterbacks, and that's sort of what you need. So I'll mention that one as well. I don't have any real thoughts on the Raiders or Cardinals hires because there's so much other stuff going on that you could hire Bill Belichick in his prime and it might not work out in those two places. There's a lot of other stuff they got to figure out first.
Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much took most of the words out of my mouth. I do want to say this on the Joe Brady thing. It's always interesting to see somebody who worked with the team previously get promoted up, because it's almost like they get a chain ripped off them, right? And it will be one of two ways. Like, all of a sudden they'll be free and it will look completely different, or it will be too much of the same and it will get the same exact result and fired in 3 years. So we never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting. You can't see it, but I have a UNC. I grew up in North Carolina. I'm a huge Tar Heels fan growing up, at least. And this is the 1982 team poster. That's nice. Jordan's rookie freshman year, and Dean Smith was the coach. But I mentioned all that because Matt Doherty is also on that poster. And after he graduated, he coached at Notre Dame for a minute, and then he took the UNC job when Dean Smith and Coach Gutt retired. And he came in as a former alumni with a ton of cred and fired everybody, including the secretary. And he tried to make wholesale changes. And that did not go over well with the fan base, with the blue bloods. You talk about blue bloods, and they're legit blue bloods. And if you don't win, forget it. Like there's no grace given. So it is a balance, and it'll be sort of fun to watch this unfold from afar, because the pressure is now on that team to quit going to the playoffs and losing. And when the owner sees Josh Allen crying and starts firing people, that should be a warning sign to everybody else in that organization that some things have to change.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, thank you so much. We've held so much of your time this morning, but thank you for being here with us. Tell the people out there watching, maybe people who aren't familiar with you, that where they can find you, what you got coming up, what's going on with you. Go ahead with anything that you want to put out there. Go ahead and do it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys, Matt and Jordan, taking some time to talk to us. This is fun. I love talking about the draft. So, CBSSports.com. I write frequently about draft and sort of NFL-related stuff. I have the podcast with the first pick that I do with former Titans GM Rand Carthon, who was in the league for almost 2 decades as a front office guy in Atlanta. He was in St. Louis and then L.A. with Les Snead and Sean McVay. He was in San Francisco with Kyle and John. And then he was the Titans GM for 2 years. He is a great resource. So we do the pod several times a week. You can check that out wherever you get your podcast. You can check it on YouTube, on the CBS Sports YouTube page. And I think we're down a little bit with the first pick episodes. And we'll be doing draft stuff nonstop. I think we have 68 or 69 days to the draft. So we'll be doing that stuff nonstop every week on the pod and on the YouTube page, where we put up a lot of the CBS Sports HQ segments. So you can check us out there.
Nice. And you say you'll be at the combine, correct?
We'll be at the combine all week. Looking forward to it. I love the combine. I love the All-Star games and I love the combine. I used to go to the Super Bowl for work, and I probably shouldn't say this out loud because maybe they won't send me back. But I love Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, and combine about 1,000% more than going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Super Bowl. I was at the Super Bowl in Radio Row. Man, it's insane.
It's insane. It's hard to get stuff done. It's hard to find people to get opportunities.
It's really bad for a person who has ADHD. Like if you have, it's just like you're like a dog in a toy store. All right, we have one question for you from a fan.
Yeah.
It says, what does Ryan think of Declan Doyle?
I have no real thoughts on Declan Doyle. I saw that he was asked about where did he come from? He was came from Chicago. He was asked about Caleb Williams' progress. So I don't know, honestly. I'm not going to make up a story. I didn't even get a chance to read his comments yet about Caleb and his development. But that is an example of a young, super smart guy as the next sort of hot candidate to keep an eye on. And a lot of times these guys work out, sometimes they don't. But I think that was part of the frustration with Steelers fans is that you had the opportunity to get Nate Shieldhouse, for example, who, let's be honest, I don't think you guys know. I don't know anything about Nate other than he works for Sean McVay and he was the Illinois quarterback in 2013. Like, he comes highly recommended. Declan Doyle obviously has a track record and did some successful things last year with Ben Johnson. So I understand why he got the opportunity he did, and hopefully he'll be successful. There you go.
Yeah, it's a 30-second clip. I literally just posted yesterday because the Ravens fans aren't familiar with them. But it's a 30-second clip of answering what you just said.
We're not seeing the completions as of yet from Caleb Williams. Where are you seeing on the field that he's improving day over day?
So biggest thing is with the pre-snap process, feeding him a play call, him getting in the huddle, getting in and out, communicating what he needs to with his teammates. He's really working at it. And that's the biggest improvement I've seen. It's all a progression. We got to continue to get better, post snap and all those things with his vision and where the ball needs to go. But that's the biggest thing. His ability to communicate to his teammates, his ability to get in and out of the huddle. And I think he's working at it.
So
I'll just say this.
It was cool. He's pretty young, man. So young.
I'll say this in listening to him talking. I hadn't heard that clip yet. And it just reiterates something that I think I tell myself often. Football does not have to be complicated. He just said, look, man, you got to know what you're looking at before the snap. And you sort of go from there. And it doesn't have to be. Sometimes we talk ourselves into, especially on social media, that if you don't know every single thing that's going on, you're not capable of doing this. At the end of the day, it's throw, catch, run, tackle, and then it's variations off of that. The other thing that I noticed from hearing Declan talk for 30 seconds is that the ability to convey a message to a group of people and that they can understand it is incredibly important. You can be Albert Einstein, but if no one can understand what you're saying, it does not matter. So just based on the 30-second interview of Declan Doyle, it feels like a pretty good hire. And obviously he comes highly recommended from Ben Johnson. So that's probably not a bad thing either.
Yeah, absolutely. The way he articulated that, like you said, even if the most casual fan could understand exactly what he's saying. And even though Lamar is way more advanced than Caleb is at this point in his career, as far as their development, some of that stuff Lamar needs as well. Like just the understanding, where your eyes are, where the ball needs to go. Look, one of the biggest things for me with Lamar is sometimes he just needs to take the layup, right? Yeah. Stop trying to go for the home run all the time. Just take the check down. He says Tom Brady is one of his biggest motivators or people he looked up to, right? One thing about Tom Brady, he invented literally taking what the defense gave you, right? Take what the defense give you, check down. And then eventually they cheat up and then you can go deep, but be patient, take what the defense gives you. And that's something Lamar, I think, can do better at. And I think hopefully Declan Doyle is going to be focusing on that.
Yeah, but, absolutely.
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. No, you got to go. Again, this was great. Come again sometime.
Absolutely, man.
Tell Ryan to holler at us, man. We'll love to have him on as well. And we'll be tapping in with you as well on your platform and whatever you have to do. I mean, whatever you got going on. If you like us to come on the show, we would love to come on.
I appreciate you guys, Matt, Jordan. Have a good day. Appreciate you guys.
All right.